Hello, good morning. In today's Scratch tutorial, we'll be looking at creating somewhat of a shooter game. So we'll have a player who's moving around and it's going to be able to shoot laser balls, or you can call it bullets. Now, this game can be applied into creating so many things. And we'll start on the basis of having it look like a maze game. So let's get started. So click on backdrops. So we want to paint the backdrop with a black background. So convert to bitmap and fill color, switch the color to black. So I want it to be fully black. So just click. So we fill the backdrop with black color. Next thing we want to do is to create a sprite. New sprite, paint a new sprite. And the sprite we are painting would be somewhat of a maze. So I'll click on the rectangle tool, and my fill color, I'd like it to be gray. So, okay, I think I like this shade of gray. So click and drag to make rectangles on the edges here. So make sure the rectangles cover everywhere so it can overlap. Let it cover everywhere. Most important thing is that there is no empty space. Okay. Oh, that was not what I intended to do. Let me just position that. So I'm going to create another, draw another rectangle here. Okay, so just like that, overlaps and covers. Now you notice it's not well positioned on stage. So instead of dragging this around, we could just add a code to it to position it on stage. So green flag. Under events, to come to when green flag is clicked, and we use motion blocks to select the go to. So go to X0, go to Y0, so that we center our sprites 0 and 0. So the sprites will be in the center once you click on the green flag. Yeah. So there we go. And we are not done with the sprites, of course, costume. So I'm going to build the maze layout. So just do something like this. Yours may be slightly different from mine, but you get the idea. Let's build some walls around, obstacles around. Okay, let me snap in. Let me make this diagonal. Yeah, just move this out. Feed it up here. Okay. So I'm building my maze. I think having a maze like this is fine. Okay, so I think I'm good to go. I'll just add one or two circles here. Okay, how about here? So fine. I'm done with my maze. So the next thing I want to create is the player. So I'll rename this player. And here I can just call this my maze. So for the player, go to costumes. We don't want this. We'll delete this. And click the select tool and delete this as well. We want our player to be somewhat like a triangle. So I'll zoom in and we'll create something like a triangle. How do we create that? I would like to use a rectangle. Oh, the fill color, something. I want something different. So something around gold and yellow. Okay, so just like that, that's fine. So I hold down shift to draw so that I have a perfect square. And I'll click on the select tool, click on this other tool rather, and click on this node and delete the node. So we have something like a triangle. Excuse me. I'll hold down shift to rotate this. I want it to face the right side. Good. Then I'll drag this and snap it into the center. After snapping in, I want to reduce this. I'll hold down the alternate key so that it remains centered, and I reduce that. Excuse me. So looking at the stage now, we have this. The triangle looks so small, so I'll just hold down shift and increase the size again. I would have done that with alternate so that it will maintain the center position. Alternate key. Okay. So I think this is big enough for me. So this is my player, and we're good. Next thing we want to do is okay. So next, the player costume. This is what we have so far. So I want to add codes to the player. So we come to events and we add when green flag is clicked, we want a go to position for it. We want it to be at the center as well. Go to 0, x0, y0. Then after that, we want pointing direction. I'll just drop that. We want it to also be able to rotate all around. So set rotation style. Oh, sorry. It should be here. Set rotation style to all around and pointing direction. We have it looking like this. Just for a difference, I want to use 45 degrees. Okay, so we are pointing direction 45 degree. So now we can go ahead to create using the forever block. Forever block, and we have need for the if functions. If then we can go ahead to create now the controls for the player. We want to be able to control the player movements. So I come to sensing if space key pressed. Now we'll switch this to left arrow. Left arrow and then right arrow. So what we want to happen when this is done is we want this to rotate. So we'll have this turn right for the right arrow and turn left for the left arrow. So 15 degrees, let's leave it as 15 degrees and just test our code. Green flag So I'm pressing right arrow is rotating, left arrow is rotating. Okay, this is fine. So what about forward movement and backward movement? So we'll just duplicate this and use. So for forward movement we use the up arrow, backward movement we use the down arrow. And we don't want it to turn when we're moving, so we need the move command. Move 10 steps and the rest. Okay, so we have it. Move 10 steps. 10 steps will be too much. Let's try 2. It will give us a smooth movement. 2. So, green flag. Okay, so this is 2. Right? See, the movement is so smooth and seamless. Okay, so we just see that it passed around, and it passed around the maze. It's yeah. So we don't want this to happen. So how do we change that? Okay, we're going to make some codes that will make it not be able to pass through the maze. It has to be blocked. Now, to add a code that will make collision possible, so that your player does not run into the walls here, or there's yeah, of course, we would have to do what, define a block. And this block we're defining is for the purpose so that our code here is minimal. So we'll make a block and we'll call this block move, and we'll add an input. The input will be steps. So this will define how many steps we want our player to move. So define move steps is over here. So with this, we'll use this move 2 steps, place it here, and we'll use steps to replace this, and then we'll bring the move code from here to be here. So this replaces what we had here as move, and you would see it still works the same way. So of course we use 2 here, and this is for backward movement, so it's be the opposite, -2. So test our code and see if it still works. Of course, still moves. And the idea of creating the block was to shorten everything so that we don't have too many codes. So it moves very fine. Okay, and now we'll add our collision detection. For our collision detection, we need the if command. If so we'll bring a if touching maze. Excuse me. Touching maze. What should happen? So we bring the move command here. So we need like to do the opposite, so of what's happening here, for it not to bump in. So if it touches maze, what should happen? It should shift back by 2 steps. So we'll get an operator here to use. We need this operator. So we need steps here. So for this collision detection, would use 0 minus steps and click on the green flag, and let's try to bump into a wall. So it won't allow you to bump into a wall. Okay, 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 okay. So it looks perfect so far. Okay, this is a very perfect, because and I think this is happening because our player sprite is very small. Now, if this player sprite, the triangle, were to be increased, the size get bigger, it'll get to a point where when it gets to the wall, it will collide, and then one part of it may be buried in the wall and it will be stuck. And that's when you would start looking at the bugs in the code. So, and you would want to debug. So, in order to prevent that, we'll just add what is called the hit box. Now, the hit box will help us prevent that. So let's get the hitbox done. So come to costume and then you create the second costume. So I'll just duplicate this. This one, let's call this player. We need to name our costumes. And here, let's call this hitbox. I'll tell you what the hitbox would do. First of all, let's delete this. Our hitbox would be a square. So hold down shift, it be 1 by 1 square meter by 1 square meter, 1 pixel by 1 pixel. So exactly the shape of one of these squares. That will be what our hitbox will be. And because of that, we have to use the switch player here on the looks. Switch player. Switch. When this starts, it should switch to player costume. So when you click on the green flag, you know you have a player costume. Okay, so back to our costumes, hitbox. So the hitbox would be embedded inside of this other shape, okay? Yes, so since we've positioned it in the center, then you can see, if you check it out, it will be in the center of this. So here. And what it basically does is that the hitbox will enable it not to get stuck in the wall. So that's the idea of creating what? Creating the hitbox. So now we'll add the codes that would control this hitbox. We'll set rotation style. So I need the set rotation style to do not rotate. We don't want the hitbox to rotate. Excuse me. Oh, why is this dragging? Set rotation style to don't rotate. And then we want, when this is defined, it will switch costume to hitbox. So switch costume, sorry, looks. Switch costume to hitbox over here. Then set rotation style to do not rotate over there. So haven't had added that. After collision, then we can switch costume back to player and set rotation style to all around. Okay, so I'll simply separate this so that I'll duplicate this. Duplicate and bring it here down after the if command has been done. So where's the switch costume? Sorry, I wanted to do this from the switch costume. Duplicate from here and I'll trash this. Switch costume is what I need. And we don't need this movement. Switch costume to player. So back to player and back to rotate all around, just like we have it here in the code. So you won't notice anything here since our player is not a big triangle, but for purpose of having a perfect code, we would have this so that it doesn't sink into the wall and get stuck. Okay, so you can see that it can't pass through the walls. Okay, so here so far, this is what we have. So our player can move and it's being stopped by the walls, so it bounces back. So our collision is fine. So next thing we want to build is our laser. So we'll create another sprite from the duplicate of player, and this would call this, can call this our laser. Okay, so come to costumes and let's edit this. We don't need this hitbox Oh, we do need that shape, so we just delete this and name this hitbox laser. Okay, so now we'll begin to add codes to this laser, and the code we have here is this. We have the similar code here, so we just trash this code. No, we duplicated. So when green flag is clicked, what do we want? Switch costume to this. Okay, so of course, so for the laser, when green flag is clicked, we want to switch costume. So loop, switch costume to laser. That's good. And we want to set rotation style to do not rotate. So come to set rotation style. Yeah. Too many applications running on the background of my computer. Computer is lagging. Oh my god, what's happening? Okay, so set rotation style to don't rotate. And then when the spacebar key is hit, what do we want to happen? Excuse me. So we use the spacebar key to trigger um the firing of the laser. So want to point in direction. Point in direction 90 there, but this will be changed. We'll get to sensing and we'll get this we'll get this code that says backdrop of stage, but we don't want backdrop of stage, so change this stage to player and point in, we want point in direction of player. Next thing we want is go to player, so that this laser go to the direction of player. Sorry, my laptop is lagging. This is very strange. It happens just when I'm using Scratch. So go to player. Go to player. Good. And then we have excuse me. We need to repeat this for the laser. This will make the laser to be fired. We need repeats until touching the maze. So on the sensing, repeat until touching maze. What should it do? It should move, and we would like to use move 4 steps here. So let's test this and see. So move. When you hit the space bar, it projects. You hit the space bar, it shoots. Hit the space bar, it shoots, and shooting from the vertex of the triangle. Space bar, space bar, space bar. Okay, so far so good. We're firing our lasers and it's working. Okay, but we can add something to make it look very, very nice. To make it look like an elastic kind of shooting. And what we will add will be repeat until. I'll just duplicate this repeat until and place it under. So repeat until touching. I'll use repeat until not touching. So we get the operator not. and repeat until not touching maze. When it repeats until not touching maze, what should happen? At that point, you should move minus one step. So it moves one step backwards, and you'll see the effect here. It's going to be rubber-like. So it bounces back, kind of. So it stays exactly on the maze. The idea is we don't want it to sink into the base. So that's the end of this for this class for today. We'll move on to do the rest in our physical class, our one-on-one class rather. Okay.